They say the plains never really forget. The way the wind carries stories, tucks them in between canyon cracks, into broken fence posts, and the warped wood of places nobody prays in anymore. So when Cole Bannister rode into Ash Hollow, he wasn't expecting to find anything but dust and silence. Just another ghost town fading into prairie wind. But fate don't wait for folks to be ready. It just sits still until someone's broken enough to see it. Cole had been drifting for 6 months straight. Left Montana with nothing but a saddlebag's worth of regret and a bullet scar below his ribs. He didn't talk about why. Most folks knew better than to ask. His horse, Pepper, was his only company, and she didn't care what he'd done, as long as he kept her fed and talked soft on cold nights. Ash Hollow was just a spot on a map now. One main street, one leaning saloon with the windows busted in, and a church. He wasn't planning to stop long. Just refill his canteen, maybe camp a night behind the old mill. But as he passed the church, something stopped him. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the faint sound of humming low, almost like the building itself was trying to remember a song. He dismounted slow, pushed the warped door open. Light spilled in behind him, catching dust in the air like fireflies caught in prayer. The pews were rotting, hymnals scattered across the floor, pages curling like autumn leaves. And there, in the second row, sat a girl. She couldn't have been more than 16, bare feet, long braid draped down her back, dirty dress that might have been white once. She was humming something soft, looking straight ahead at the altar like it still meant something. Cole froze. "You all right, miss?" She turned to him, slow, blinking like she wasn't sure if he was real. Then she said, quiet but clear, "I've been waiting on you." That stopped him. "Pardon. You got a kind face," she said, still looking at him like he was something from a book. She half remembered. "I figured it'd be someone like you." Cole stepped closer, cautious. "You alone?" She nodded. "Been alone since the storm." "What storm?" She didn't answer, just stared forward again, hands folded neat in her lap. He crouched beside her, lowered his voice. "What's your name, darling?" "Eliza," she whispered. "My mama said if things got bad, I should wait in God's house. Said someone come for me if I waited long enough." Cole's throat tightened. "How long you been here?" Her lips trembled. 5 days. Maybe 6. I ran out of water 2 nights ago." He stood fast, went to his saddlebag and grabbed his canteen. Held it to her lips, watched her drink like someone who'd learned to sip slowly. When she was done, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and looked up at him. "You ain't gonna leave, are you?" Cole didn't answer right away. Just looked around that shattered church the way the light hit the altar. The smell of old cedar and old sorrow. "No, Elisa," he said finally. "I reckon I'm not." And right then, he knew something in his life had shifted. That this girl, this church, this moment wasn't chance. It was something bigger. Something sent. He didn't kneel yet, but something in his chest had. Because even a man with no place left to go can find purpose in the ashes. Have you ever felt like you were meant to be in a place at the exact moment someone needed you? Cole didn't expect to find a girl in that broken church. But maybe fate had a plan. What do you think brought him there? Share your thoughts in the comments. Cole Bannister had seen his share of broken things. Barns half-eaten by wind. Men half-eaten by guilt. Women hardened into silence. But nothing had struck him quite like Eliza sitting quiet in that pew. Her hands folded like she'd never been touched by anything rough. Like she didn't even know how much she'd been left behind. That first night, he made camp just outside the church, under a cottonwood tree. He offered her a spot by the fire, but she shook her head and stayed inside. Said she felt safer under the crossbeam roof. Truth was, Cole figured she was waiting to see if he'd stay come morning. He did by daybreak. He was patching a hole in the church roof with pieces of old tin and hammered nails he'd found in the blacksmith's shed across the street. It wasn't kindness, not entirely. It was something quieter, something steadier. Eliza watched him through the warped window, eyes wide and still. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words came like thread-thinned. Quiet, but strong enough to pull something from him. "You from here?" she asked one afternoon, kneeling beside him as he cooked beans over the fire. "No," Cole answered, stirring slow. "From nowhere in particular." She tilted her head. "Is that a real place?" He smiled, just a little. Might as well be that evening, as the sky lit up orange behind the hills. Eliza finally said what he'd been waiting to hear. "My mama's gone," she said. Not dramatic, not even teary. Just a fact, like the wind was cold, or the sky was wide. We're heading west. She took sick. Real fast. I buried her behind the church. Cole looked up. You did that yourself? She nodded. How old are you? Almost 17, she said. Then, softer, 16 3/4. Mama always said to count the fractions. Makes the time feel like it's not slipping so fast. Cole nodded, his voice quiet. She sounds like she was real wise. Eliza smiled for the first time. Not big, not long, but enough. The days stretched. Cole went into the woods and brought back rabbits. Found a stream and taught Eliza how to trap fish with her bare hands. She was quick, quicker than most men he'd known. She'd sit near the fire at night with a stick, carving little animals out of pine like she needed to shape something solid in a world that had fallen apart. And slowly, she started to tell him more. She used to sing to me, Eliza said one night, voice no louder than the wind, songs from back east. One about a river that never stops flowing. Said that's what love was supposed to be. Something that didn't dry up. Cole didn't say anything. Just stared into the fire like it held all the answers he never had. When she fell asleep that night, curled up beneath the tattered quilt she'd taken from the pews, Cole sat awake for a long while, watching the way the flames flickered across her face. Not because he didn't trust the dark, but because some part of him had started to believe he was no longer drifting. He'd found something, or someone, and that scared him more than the guns he used to run from. The third morning came quiet, but something in the wind had shifted. It carried the scent of horse sweat and gun oil faint, but Cole knew it. The kind of scent that stuck to men who'd been riding too long without good reason. He stood at the edge of the churchyard, boots planted in frostbitten grass, eyes narrowing at the far ridge. Eliza was inside, humming again. That soft, aching tune she returned to when her thoughts went where she couldn't say aloud. Then he saw him, a rider, lone figure against the sky, just sitting still on his horse like a shadow waiting to drop. Didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. Cole didn't go for his rifle right away. Not yet, but he loosened the strap on the holster at his hip, turned to Eliza as she stepped out of the doorway behind him. You know him? He asked, voice low. She didn't answer, but her humming stopped. Eliza, he pressed. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the shawl she'd found in the church's lost and found chest. I think he followed us. From Missouri. Cole stepped in front of her, steady and calm. You're safe here. You understand. I won't let anyone lay a hand on you. She shook her head, not out of fear, but something heavier. It ain't that simple. The rider finally moved, slow and smooth down the ridge. Didn't come close, just tied his horse to a tree at a distance and built a fire like he meant to camp there. Cole walked out to meet him before Eliza could stop him. The man was older than Cole, but not by much. Rough coat, hat pulled low, long scar running down his cheek like he'd earned it defending something he shouldn't have. He looked up when Cole approached. Not unfriendly, but not soft either. Didn't mean to spook the girl, the stranger said, voice gravelly. You know her? Cole asked. He nodded. Name's Thomas. I knew her mother. Rode with her a spell. After her husband passed. Cole stiffened. Passed. Thomas sighed, pulled something from his coat, a folded letter, edges worn. The girl doesn't know everything. Her mother was rude. Man she married was mean. Hurt em both. I tried to help. Too late. Cole didn't reach for the letter. Not yet. Thomas added. When her mama died, I tracked Eliza best I could. Figured she'd land somewhere quiet, but I didn't expect a drifter like you to be sitting next to her when I found her. Cole's jaw tightened. She needed someone. Thomas gave a weary smile. So did her mama, and no one came. They stood there for a long beat. Two men, weathered and quiet. Neither looking to start something, but neither willing to back down from the truth either. Finally, Thomas said, I ain't here to take her back. Just came to make sure she wasn't buried beside her mother. Cole took the letter. Didn't read it. Just nodded. You'll camp out here tonight. Just the one. Then I'll be gone. When Cole returned to the church, Eliza was back, in the pew, staring at the broken glass where a stained glass window used to be. I remember him, she said before Cole could speak. He gave me a red ribbon once. Said it was for luck. He brought a letter. From your mama. Eliza didn't reach for it. Maybe tomorrow, she whispered. And that night, Cole didn't sleep, sat by the fire outside the church, watching Thomas's distant flame flicker on the ridge, thinking how strange it was that sometimes the ghosts you run from show up not to haunt you, but to hand you back a piece of your story. The sun rose slow and red that morning, like it didn't want to touch the ground. Cole sat on the front steps of the church, sipping bitter coffee from a tin cup that had seen too many fires. Inside, Eliza moved quiet. No more humming. Just the rustle of feet on old wood. The soft sigh of someone who'd decided today was the day to stop pretending. She stepped out into the pale light with a letter in hand. Didn't say a word. Just looked at him, eyes tired, and nodded once. Cole didn't speak, just made space beside him on the step. She sat. The wind stirred her braid, and the paper trembled in her grip like it remembered who wrote it. She opened it. Her lips moved soundlessly as she read. Cole didn't look over. He just watched the way her expression shifted from distant to tense, to something that looked an awful lot like pain. Then came the tears. Not loud, not showy, just soft and steady. The kind that fall when you've held things in too long. And now even silence can't carry the weight. She folded the letter once more, and held it tight to her chest. She thought I'd hate her, Eliza whispered. Thought I'd blame her for staying so long. For letting him, for not leaving sooner. Cole's voice was low. You don't, though, do you? She shook her head, hard. I never did. Then that's what matters. She looked at him, eyes raw but clear. She didn't write about Thomas. Not once. But he knew we were here. Knew where we'd be. She looked off toward the ridge where his fire had already gone cold. I think she meant to give me a chance. A clean one. She just didn't live long enough to finish it. Cole stared out across the prairie, thinking on that. I reckon some people try to save you by vanishing, he said. Doesn't always work. But maybe it's the best they knew how to do. Eliza nodded, quiet. They spent the rest of the day together repairing the pew bench that always tilted to the left, straightening hymnals like the church might be filled again someday, not because it needed to be done, because the doing of it kept their hands moving, and their grief from taking up too much room. That night, she asked him something that startled him. Will you teach me how to shoot? Cole blinked. You want to hunt? She shook her head. No, I want to stop being afraid. He didn't answer right away, just studied her, then the stars, then the quiet of the land around them. All right, he said. But you're gonna learn it the right way, not to hurt, just to stand your ground, if the day ever comes. She looked up, brave and scared all at once. Thank you. No, he murmured. Thank you. They started with an old pistol Cole had carried since Texas. It wasn't pretty handled nicked barrel butt. It was steady and true, like most things that had survived long enough to lose their shine. He placed it in Eliza's hands one morning, fingers gentle as he guided hers into position. Don't squeeze it like it owes you, he said softly. Just hold it like you mean it, like you respect it. She nodded, eyes serious. They stood in the clearing behind the church, where brush gave way to open prairie. Cole had set up a line of rusted cans on an old fence rail. The first shot rang out and missed by a wide mile. Eliza frowned, lips tight, but Cole just nodded. That's all right, he said. You're not here to hit. You're here to feel what it means to aim. By the third day, she was knocking cans off the rail one after the other. By the fifth, she could load, clean and disassemble the weapon blindfolded. But Cole didn't teach her to love the gun. He taught her to know it and to choose never to use it unless there was no other choice left standing. They'd settled into something fragile but good. He rebuilt a corner of the church wall. She cooked better than she let on. At night, they sat close by the fire, and sometimes Eliza would hum again. Just a little. Just enough to remind them both that something inside her still believed in music. But peace don't last long in the West. Not when smoke starts curling on the wind. It came on the seventh evening, just before dusk. A thin trail rising over the southern hill. Cole spotted it first while drawing water. He froze, bucket in hand, eyes narrowing. He didn't say a word to Eliza at first. Just walked back to the church, calm and steady. She knew the look. What is it? She asked. Someone's nearby, he said, grabbing his rifle. She stepped outside, staring at the smoke. Could be Thomas, she said quietly. He shook his head. Thomas left 2 days ago. He said his goodbye. Eliza's voice dropped. Could be someone else then. Cole didn't answer, but he saddled Pepper, checked their supplies, counted ammunition not with panic, but with a kind of methodical calm that made Eliza's stomach turn. That night, they didn't light a fire. Ate cold beans and dry bread under a blanket of silence. Cole kept watch. Eliza stayed close, the pistol tucked in her shawl, now like it had always been part of her. Just after midnight, she finally asked, if they come, what will we do? Cole looked at her, eyes dark but sure. We'll choose what kind of people we want to be, he said, and we'll stand for that. Together? For a man who had spent most of his life alone. Those words didn't come easy, but they came honest. And when Eliza leaned into his side and whispered, "I'm not running anymore," he felt something inside him shift against something quieter than fear, louder than fate. Because now, they weren't just two souls passing through. They were something else. Maybe not a family, but something close. The smoke on the hill reminds US peace is never guaranteed. But standing your ground with someone who believes in you, that might just be enough. What would you have done in Cole's boots? Prepare for battle or ride away again? Let us know your heart in the comments, where the visitor behind the smoke finally steps into the story. And he's not who either of them expected. The smoke was still rising when dawn cracked over the ridge, and Cole knew whoever was out there hadn't left. He saddled Pepper quietly and told Eliza to stay inside, eyes on the far hill. She didn't argue, just gripped the pistol in both hands like it was the final word between her and whatever darkness might come. He rode slow, no rifle drawn, just steady posture and sharp eyes. The wind carried the scent of mesquite, ash, and something bitter. And then he saw him tall figure crouched by a dying fire. A black coat hung heavy on his frame, and a silver badge glinting faintly on his chest. A U.S. Marshal. Cole stopped 20 yards out. That fire was a message or a mistake. The man stood slowly, hands away from his belt. "Neither," he said. "Just coffee and cold boots. But I reckon you're the one keeping a girl named Eliza Whitmore." Cole didn't flinch. "That depends on who's asking." The marshal stepped forward, enough for Cole to catch the wear on his boots. The way his mustache didn't hide the tired lines around his mouth. "Name's Marshal Everett Cross. Been tracking a girl and her mother from Missouri. Only the mother didn't make it. You, her protector." Now Cole said nothing at first. Just studied the man's eyes, and found no cruelty in them. Just something resigned. "Warn. I look after her," he said finally. Cross nodded, like he understood the weight in those words. "Good, she's gonna need someone when this is over." Cole's pulse slowed. "What's this?" Cross reached in his coat sleeve. Mesrepresented pulled out a folded telegram, handed it to Cole. Cole read it once, then again. He looked up, jaw tight. "There's a bounty," was Cross corrected. "Expired now. She was named by her father's people, not the law. He's dead. Shot 2 months back in a tavern brawl. Once that happened, the charges stopped mattering." Cole lowered the paper. "Then why are you here?" Cross glanced toward the church down below. "Because no one ever told her. And because there's land in Missouri, her mother's family left it to her. No one else is left to claim it. Was tasked with finding the girl and giving her a choice." Cole didn't speak, just looked down toward that old church, the steeple broken, but still pointing at something bigger. "Eliza's free," Cross added gently. "She's got a home waiting, if she wants it. But she don't have to go back. That choice is hers." Cole swallowed. The wind picked up dust between them. "Can I tell her?" he asked. Cross hesitated, then nodded. "She trusts you. That's more than the badge ever bought me." They parted with a quiet handshake, the kind that said more than a dozen promises ever could. When Cole returned to the church, Eliza met him on the steps. She saw the paper in his hand, but she didn't ask. Just waited, steady as ever. "You were never wanted," he said softly. "Your father's family tried to punish your mama by hunting you. But they're gone. And there's land back east, with your name on it. Real land. A real home." Her lips parted, but no words came. Just the slow rise of tears in her eyes. "Marshall says, it's yours if you want it," he added. She looked past him, toward the open prairie. "And if I don't, then we stay," Cole said. "We build something right here, together." She looked at him a long time. Not as a girl now, but something more. Someone growing into her own spine, her own strength. "I don't know what I want yet," she whispered. "That's all right," he replied. "You don't have to decide today." And she smiled. A real one. This time, good. "I'd hate to make up my mind without finishing the quilt first." He laughed, low and warm. "Fair enough." The wind was quiet that morning, too quiet for Cole's liking. After Marshall Cross rode out, the hills seemed to hold their breath. Eliza kept her hands busy mending seams, drying herbs, sketching something in the back of an old hymnal butt. Cole noticed how she kept glancing toward the road, like waiting on something she couldn't name. He felt it too. Not dread, exactly, but a tug in the ribs, like something was coming and had already chosen its time to arrive. It did. 2 days later, the sun had just crested when the knock came. Not hard, not frantic. Just 3 even taps on the old church door. Cole opened it slow. She stood there like a memory he didn't want to name. Clara Dean. Auburn hair tied back, freckles faded by time and travel. She still wore that same threadbare blue shawl she'd had in Kansas. The one she used to wrap around herself on nights she swore she wasn't cold. Cole didn't speak. Neither did she. For a full 10 seconds, the silence between them stretched like a taut wire strung across the years. Then she whispered, "I heard you'd stopped running." Cole swallowed. "Where'd you hear that?" "Does it matter?" she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Eliza stood near the altar, caught mid-step. Her eyes narrowed. "Who is she?" Clara turned, studied the girl. "You must be Eliza. And you must be trouble." Eliza shot back. Not unkind, but sharp enough to remind Clara she wasn't the only spine in the room. Cole cleared his throat. "She's someone from before," Clara scoffed. "That's generous." Eliza looked between them. "You gonna explain? Or should I go fetch the marshal back?" Clara laughed at that. "I like her." Cole rubbed a hand down his face. "She's my wife." The words hung like dust in the sunbeam. Eliza blinked. "Your what?" was Clara corrected. Jaw tight. "We signed the papers years ago. He left before they dried." "I had my reasons," Cole muttered. "You always do." Clara turned to Eliza. "I came because I heard about you. About your mother. About this church. And I had to see if it was truth. That the man who left me in Kansas had found a home somewhere he didn't build. And a girl he didn't run from." Eliza folded her arms. "And what did you plan to do? Drag him back?" "No," Clara said quietly. "I came to let go." That silenced the room. She stepped closer to Cole. Not with anger, but something softer. "I held on to hate too long. I blamed you for a life that went wrong in ways neither of us controlled. You left because you were broken, and I stayed because I thought loving you meant waiting forever. I didn't think I deserved better," he said hoarsely. "And maybe you didn't," she whispered, "but you do now." She pulled something from her bag, a tin box. Inside it, 2 rings tarnished, small, untouched by time. "I kept them," she said, "but I'm leaving them here. With you. Let this place be the end of it." Cole didn't touch the box. He just looked at her and said, "Thank you." Clara turned to Eliza. "Take care of him. He's good beneath the dust. He just needed a place to kneel." Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her like punctuation at the end of a long, unfinished chapter. Eliza looked at him, long and quiet. "You loved her." "I thought I did," he said. "But what I ran from wasn't her. It was me." And for the first time, Eliza understood that maybe they weren't so different. Both had been left. Both had been hunted by shadows they didn't earn. And both had chosen to stay in a broken church, trying to piece themselves back together. It started with frost on the window pane, thin as breath, delicate as lace. Eliza traced it with one finger, watching the swirl of white gather behind the hills. Winter was arriving fast and early, the kind that didn't ask permission. Cole stood out by the well, hammering down a new cover so it wouldn't freeze through. He glanced at the sky like he could read the clouds. Maybe he could. Men like him learned to measure time not by clocks but by wind, birdsong, and how the air bit at your knuckles start by nightfall. The storm rolled in heavy dot. They packed straw around the edges of the church walls, blocked the open spaces with canvas and blankets, anything they could find. Eliza boiled water, made a stew from salt pork and dried carrots, her hands never stopping. Neither did her thoughts. "What if the roof gives?" she asked, sitting near the fire, steam curling up from the bowl in her hands. "It won't," Cole said. "You sure?" "No," he admitted, voice soft. "But I'll be under it with you. Either way." She smiled a little, not from amusement, but because those were the kind of words that warmed more than the fire. Outside, the wind screamed. Snow piled against the church door, like the world trying to bury them whole. Cole added more wood to the stove, then sat across from her, boots damp and shoulders dusted in powder. "Eliza," he said after a long silence, "when this storm passes, you don't have to stay. You've got a deed to land, a name that's clean, and a future that's yours." She looked up sharply. "Are you sending me away?" "No," he said, "but I won't hold you here out of guilt or gratitude. You get to choose. You've earned that right." Eliza stared into the fire. "This church doesn't feel like a prison. Then what does it feel like?" She thought for a long while before answering. "Like a page no one finished writing. And I want to see how it ends." He leaned back, let her words settle into him, then said quietly, "You're braver than most grown men I've known." And then, sometime past midnight, came the sound that cracked the quiet, wide open. A baby's cry. At first, Cole thought it was wind. Then he realized it was too sharp, too real. He grabbed his coat, kicked open the half-frozen door, and staggered into the blinding white. There, on the church steps, swaddled in an old saddle blanket, was a baby, no more than a few weeks old, crying like the world had just begun and already broken its promise. Eliza gasped when he brought it inside. Who would? Why would someone? Cole searched the snowy trail but found nothing. No footprints, no wagon ruts. Just wind and snow and silence. They wrapped the baby in dry cloth, held it close to the stove, fed it water from a spoon. Eliza rocked it like she'd done it all her life. "Boy or girl?" Cole asked. She looked up, eyes shining. "Boy," he nodded. "Name?" Eliza pressed her cheek to the child's head, then whispered, "He don't need one yet. He just needs to know he's not alone." Cole watched her. Then this girl who'd buried her mother, face down a gun, stood through a storm, and now rocked an orphan like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for the first time, Cole Bannister knelt in fear, not in grief, but because there are moments when a man sees grace with his own eyes and knows he's standing in the presence of something holy. The snow didn't let up for 2 more days. The church became a cradle of warmth and quiet breaths. Its silence, now broken only by the occasional cry from the tiny bundle in Eliza's arms. She hardly let go of him, not out of fear, but something gentler. Like the boy was sewn into some old wound she didn't know she had, until she held him. Cole watched her move through the pews, her body rocking on instinct, voice low as she hummed that same river song her mother used to sing. And sometimes, when the boy's fists clenched, or he startled in his sleep, she'd whisper, "It's all right. We're still here, still warm." By the 3rd morning, the skies cleared, and light flooded the stained glass remnants near the pulpit. Cole brought in water from the thawing well. Eliza sat near the stove, watching steam curl off the baby's blanket. Then she froze. "Cole," she called, voice tight. "Come look at this." He crossed the room in 2 strides, crouched beside her. She turned back a corner of the saddle blanket. In the corner, crudely stitched in blue thread, were the initials EWELIZA. Stared down. "That's my mother's stitching," she whispered. "She made this for me when I was a baby." Cole's eyes narrowed. "You're sure? I'd know it anywhere." Her voice trembled. "She told me she'd packed it the day we ran, said it was the one thing she couldn't leave behind. But when she got sick, I never saw it again. I thought she must have lost it." Cole's breath slowed. He looked at the baby, then the door, then back at her. "Eliza," he said carefully, "what if this boy ain't a stranger?" She held the child closer, but her voice dropped to a hush. "You think she had family? Someone who came later? Someone who found what she left behind?" "I don't know," Cole murmured. "But someone brought this boy to you, wrapped in the only thing left of your babyhood. That ain't accident. That's someone telling you something." Her fingers brushed the stitching. "But who?" They searched the town the next day, when the sun rose high and the paths cleared. No prints left in the snow. No riders. No notes. Just wind-blown doors, and the sound of melting ice dripping from the eaves. But someone had been there. And they hadn't just left a child. They'd left a question that only love could answer. That night, Eliza sat beside Cole, the baby asleep on her chest, and asked, "Do you think I'm meant to keep him?" Cole stared into the fire for a long time. "I think he's here because someone believed you'd know what to do." She glanced at him. "And what do you believe?" He turned toward her slowly. "I believe we're not always given the whole story. Just enough of it to find our next step." Then, after a long pause, he added, "And I believe whatever that boy is, whoever he becomes, he's already got 2 people who won't let him go cold in the dark." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "You mean that? I wouldn't be here if I didn't." Outside, the last snow fell. Quiet and slow. Not a storm, now just the soft closing of a chapter. And in that stillness, something unspoken passed between them. Not a vow, not yet, but the kind of trust that starts at the edge of the unknown and walks forward anyway. Spring came slow, that you're creeping in through the cracks like it didn't want to disturb anything too tender. The snow melted in hushes, leaving behind soft earth and a quiet that felt like forgiveness. The church still stood, weathered but warm. And for the first time in a long while, it smelled like bread baking and baby soap and something else. Hope the boy Eliza had taken to calling him Jonah grew fast. His eyes opened wide to the world, like he was daring it to hurt him. And Eliza, for all her bruised past, met that challenge with gentleness and grit. She read to him in the afternoon sun that fell through the broken panes. She sewed new swaddles from old hymn sheets and sang lullabies with a voice steadier than before. Cole watched from the doorway most days, like he still wasn't sure if he was part of it or just lucky to witness it. But the truth was, something inside him had shifted like a rope. Once stretched tight, now hung slack with surrender. One morning, Eliza found him outside, packing his saddlebags. "You leaving?" she asked, voice quiet. He looked up, startled, then softened. "No, just clearing space, letting go of things that don't fit anymore." She watched as he held up the old tin box, the one with the rings Clara had left behind. "You gonna bury it?" He shook his head. "I'm gonna give it to the river. Let the past drift, same as I did." She nodded. "That feels right." They walked together to the stream behind the church. No ceremony, just stillness. He opened the box, stared down at the rings, and then, without a word, let them fall into the current. The water carried them without resistance. Back at the church, Jonah cried, but it wasn't hunger or panic. It was the kind of cry that came from needing arms, from missing warmth. Eliza moved to get him, but Cole held out a hand. "Let me," he said. She paused, then stepped back. Cole lifted the child with more care than he'd ever shown a firearm or a horse. Jonah settled instantly against his chest, one tiny fist clutching at his shirt, and Coltuff, drifting. Broken down, Cole sank to his knees on the floorboards of the church, holding the boy like a prayer answered too late but still welcome. Eliza stood above him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "This is the first time I've ever seen you kneel," she whispered. He looked up at her. "It's the first time I wanted to outside." The prairie breathed in spring. Birds returned. Grass pushed up from tired earth. And from the church that had once echoed with only silence and ghosts, came the sound of laughter, small, real, and alive. They didn't speak of forever, but they stayed. And sometimes, staying is the bravest thing a soul can do. Sometimes, kneeling isn't about surrender, it's about choosing to stay, to build, to love. Cole didn't kneel out of weakness. He knelt because he finally had something worth holding on to. What moment in your life made you stop running? Share your story in the comments, and if this journey touched your heart, follow 4 more stories like this. Out here in the West, redemption doesn't ride in loud. It walks in quiet and stays.